USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Shaq here, spinning fast-acting pain relief with Icy Hot. Ice works fast, heat makes it last. Icy Hot, you're so back.
Have you heard about Hyphenly from Immigrantly Media? It's a curated roundup of books, articles, music, podcasts, and other interesting things we think you'll love, delivered straight to your inbox. Subscribe to Hyphenly. The link to the newsletter is in the show notes. And now to today's episode. The date is March 23rd, 1996. It's a bitterly cold day in Alberta, Canada, which is fitting for a figure skating competition. We're at the World Figure Skating Championships, and a 15-year-old girl from Torrance, California is about to step onto the ice. Michelle Kwan is already a household name in the skating world. She's graceful, precise, and impossibly composed for her age. But what makes her appearance here truly remarkable is how unlikely it was to happen at all. Kwan is the daughter of working-class Chinese immigrants. Her parents didn't have deep pockets or corporate sponsorship to cover the sport's staggering expenses: the skates, rink fees, private coaching, elaborate costumes, and travel for competitions across the world. Instead, they relied on scholarships, creative budgeting, and sheer determination. Her father even sold the family home to keep her dream alive. And now, here she is, standing at center ice in the biggest competition of her life.
Only two skaters have won the Ladies World Championship at the age of 15. They are legends, Oksana Bayul and Sonia Henny. Michelle Kwan of the United States has a chance to match them.
The arena swells with applause and then falls silent.
She has won 4 out of 5 of the international competitions that she has skated in this year. The track record couldn't be much better than that.
From her very first glide, it's clear that she's brought her A game. Her movements are clean and precise, her jumps looking strong. There's one small misstep. A planned triple toe loop becomes a double, but she doesn't panic. She keeps skating, every movement measured and every turn flawless. And then, in the final moments, she surprises everyone, swapping a planned double axel for a triple toe loop. A bold choice, and one that could make all the difference.
Oh, that's interesting. She changed that for a triple toe loop. That could really help her in her quest for the gold medal. She has added a triple at the end of her program. That was smart.
Michelle breaks down in tears, overwhelmed by the moment. The crowd leaps to its feet, roaring its approval. But as the applause echoes around the rink, it's worth remembering that just being here is already a victory. Because in figure skating, which is one of the most expensive sports in the world, talent alone rarely gets you to this stage. Hey everyone, it's Kavitha Davidson, and welcome to another episode of Sportly. Each week, we discuss lesser-known sports history, iconic events, notable athletes, and impactful moments on and off the field. Moments that all too often fall to the sidelines of history. Michelle Kwan's triumph in 1996 was a win for more than just her. It was proof that, with extraordinary sacrifice, it's possible to break into sports where the odds are stacked against you. But here's the thing. For every Michelle Kwan, there are countless talented athletes who never make it this far. For all that we talk about sports being a meritocracy where the best rise to the top, the reality is more complicated. So today, we'll take a look at financial accessibility in sports. Every athlete faces different life circumstances. Where you live or how much money you and your family makes can play a huge role in what sports you have access to. And for athletes of color, the barriers go even deeper. Many high-cost sports remain overwhelmingly white, not just because of who can afford them, but because of who feels welcome in those spaces, who is or isn't invited in. All of that compounds with the fact that some sports are simply harder to break into than others. Figure skating, skiing, cycling, these are just a few of the sports where talent alone isn't enough. You need equipment, you need coaching, and above all, you need money. At a time when private coaching, elite travel leagues, and early specialization are becoming the norm, it can feel as if we're moving in the wrong direction. So in today's episode, we'll share the stories of athletes who have had to overcome these kinds of barriers in their sports. We'll learn why raw talent isn't always enough to make it. And we'll take a stab at the burning question, how do we fix it?
A little strategy there, as well as beauty.
And for a moment, as though she surprised herself with that move.
So back to Michelle Kwan's story. How does the night in Alberta end? When the technical merit scores are announced, she's right where she needs to be. Her marks are strong, the crowd is buzzing, and the gold medal seems within reach.
Parents in the audience.
For Michelle Kwan.
Like most of the top skaters, the product of a very supportive family.
Finally, the presentation scores.
And now you can see right here that she has 2 6.0s also.
At the age of 15, Michelle Kwan has her world championship.
And just like that, she's done it. She's bringing home the gold, becoming one of the youngest world champions ever. But there's more to this story than what we can see on the ice. Michelle didn't just battle her competitors, she and her family had to fight the sport itself. Here she is in her own words.
When you're participating in a sport like figure skating, where it's very expensive to have lessons, to travel to competitions, to get costumes, to get figure skates, to blades, those were things that were rather difficult. You know, when I was climbing the ranks in figure skating, there were many times when my parents looked at us and saying, well, we can't afford new skates, and there might be a possibility that you have to quit skating. Which to an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old is, traumatizing. Also looking at...
In the end, it's fair to say things worked out for Michelle Kwan. But the uncomfortable truth is that Michelle Kwan is an outlier. For many kids, their financial backgrounds prove to be too big a barrier to make it in the sport that they love. One future star learned that lesson before anyone knew his name. It's another chilly day in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and it's definitely no better on the rink. This isn't a figure skating event, though. It's hockey. And tonight's event certainly isn't being televised. It's just your typical Midwestern kids hockey night. Parents and siblings are all bundled up, unaware that they're watching a star in the making. Out on the rink, a 13-year-old boy named JJ Watt is flying across the ice. He dribbles the puck with the skill of someone much older than his years, getting ready to take a shot on goal. He shoots, a split second of anticipation, and then he watches the puck hit the back of the net. Decades later, JJ would still describe that rush as one of the greatest feelings in all of sports. And indeed, JJ would grow up to be a huge star, earning accolades like Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year and smashing league records. But not in the National Hockey League, as you probably already know. JJ grew up to be a professional in the National Football League. Not necessarily because he loved football much more or because he was much better at it, but because of money.
So my parents, we had to stop playing because it was literally too expensive. You have to buy new skates. You have to buy new gear basically every year because you're growing. And so when we had to stop, I cried and I cried and I cried. And it was so sad for me. But now that I'm an adult, I feel so terrible that I feel like selfish because I was sitting there crying. And as a parent, to see your kid crying because you can't afford for them to play a sport
that was JJ
like,
speaking to ESPN. He shared that, looking back, he truly thinks he had a shot at being a professional hockey player, if only he had the means to get there. Now, luckily for him, he excelled in more sports than one. In high school, he lettered in baseball, basketball, football, and track and field, and was even the Wisconsin state champion in shot put. He had walked away from hockey, again, not because he wanted to, but because his family had no other choice. And thankfully, he was able to divert his talents to football. You see, many kids from middle and lower class backgrounds who play multiple sports end up choosing football or basketball, not just because of expenses, but because of another financial consideration, the cost of college. Top recruits in football and basketball receive full college scholarships, while those who play other sports often only receive partial scholarships, if any. So if your family can't afford to pay for university, you're more likely to focus on football or basketball in high school. And of course, the ultimate goal is making it to the pros for the ultimate payoff, but only a handful of athletes actually achieve that. Now, J.J. Watt's decision to give up hockey and focus on football clearly paid off. He was drafted in the first round of the 2011 NFL Draft. He was named NFL Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. He's expected to be elected to the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility in 2028. And over 12 seasons in the NFL, his career earnings totaled more than $129 million. So in the end, like Michelle Kwan, he made it, despite having to leave hockey due to his family's working-class background. But what happens when an athlete has already invested too much of themselves to walk away?
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
The year is 2013. This time, we've got 24-year-old Emily Scott out on the rink. Not for figure skating and not for hockey, but for speed skating, a competitive form of skating where skaters race each other on the ice. Today, Emily's training to get to her first Olympics. So you'd think her mind would be completely focused on her performance, the time she's hitting or whether she's on the right trajectory. But instead, she's worried about how she's going to pay her bills and her training costs. The prohibitive costs of sports has affected Emily her entire life. As a young girl, she quit gymnastics because it got too expensive for her family. And that was after making the Junior Olympics gymnastics team. She took up inline speed skating instead, and it turns out she was great at that too. Her father, whom she calls her hero, worked paycheck to paycheck installing signage in Springfield. Yet he always supported her ambitions, driving long distances to get her to competitions and training. Even as the financial constraints of being a single father to 2 daughters weighed heavily on him. At just 15 years old, she was already breaking records, setting the U.S. national record in the sophomore 2,000-meter two-woman relay. After winning 5 world championships and setting multiple records in inline speed skating, Emily transitioned to the ice in 2008 in order to chase her Olympic dreams. In 2011, she was part of the U.S. short track relay team that finished 3rd in World Cup standings. And at the 2012 World Championships, she and her team took silver in the 3,000-meter relay. With all those successes, you might think that Emily had earned the right to just focus on her training. But after an uncharacteristically poor showing at the 2013 World Championships, the U.S. speed skating budget was slashed, which meant that Emily's stipend was cut in more than half to just $600 a month. This made her financial situation so rocky that she had to apply for food stamps and take on a part-time job just to continue training and keep her lights on. As Emily explained to BBC News a year later,
You have this idea of you being an Olympian. They think we live in this grand building where we get everything paid for, and we have chefs that cook for us, and that's not the case at all. Last year, I didn't have the best results, and our funding is strictly based on performance. So I got my funding cut. In all honesty, I thought my career was over.
And Emily wasn't the only one suffering. Her whole team was. Here's her teammate, Jessica Smith.
I personally train on my own, so I'm with a separate team, and all finances are on my own, and I have to pay for my training and my ice fees, everything. So, it's been a big burden on my family and everybody, and so we've definitely been reaching out. I started a Rally Me and trying to get some funds and some extra support from outside donations.
Luckily for Emily, her story catches the attention of USA Today, which runs a feature on her struggle. The article goes viral, and people from all across the U.S. begin sending her team small donations with encouraging messages. By the end, they raised almost $50,000, which was enough to let Emily train full-time in the lead-up to the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi. But Emily is far from the only athlete in this kind of situation. The reality is, most sports don't suddenly become less expensive at the higher levels. And not every sport has enough sponsorship money flowing to compensate for it. Emily was able to make it to the Olympics thanks to her story catching attention. But as we've asked throughout today's episode, what if she hadn't been so lucky? So many of these feel-good stories are about athletes overcoming challenges through sheer grit and luck. But it's interesting just how much luck plays a part when it comes to these notoriously expensive sports, where it costs many thousands of dollars just to get started. Skates, helmets, pads, uniforms, and jerseys, these costs add up fast. Then there's the price of lessons and coaching. And perhaps worst of all, registration and travel costs in these kinds of sports can be exorbitant. According to a survey from the Aspen Institute, parents of ice hockey players are spending over $2,000 a year on their children's sporting careers. Gymnastics, skiing, and lacrosse aren't far behind. And maybe you're thinking, haven't we at least made some strides in improving financial accessibility to sports? Well, the truth is, in many ways, we're actually moving in the wrong direction. Over the last several decades, youth sports, especially, have gotten more expensive, not less. And there isn't just one factor driving that change, but Linda Flanagan, author of Take Back the Game, says a lot of it has to do with declining public investment in youth sports.
Individuals, private entities, nonprofits stepping in to fill the void where, we used to have, town leagues and town programs. So the private and nonprofit sector moves in.
A lack of government support for sports has created a vacuum that private entities like personal coaches or elite travel leagues are all too happy to fill. Put the already sky-high costs of sports like gymnastics and ice skating together with this new and expanding youth sports industrial complex, and you have a real predicament. But a better future for sports is possible. One where low-income families don't have to sell their homes or rely on the kindness of hundreds of strangers to get into the game. One possible answer might be reinvesting public dollars back in youth sports. That's really where it all begins. Local governments give kids opportunities to play the sports that they want to, whether that be on the rink or in the gymnasium. That alone could make a real difference in wresting back some of the power from all of these private organizations and improving sports equity in the process. But what about the adults, the Emily Scotts of the world? The ones who don't walk away even when the funding seems to be drying up? Well, we could start by supporting them more, because realistically, most athletes can't count on sponsorship money to get by. The United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee has increased funding in recent years for tuition, insurance premiums, education, and wellness for its athletes, but it's still not enough. These kinds of changes would all mean rethinking how we fund and value sports, for the youth and far beyond. But if we want sports to truly reward talent and commitment, then we have to support all athletes. and not just the ones who can afford to stick with it. Thanks for tuning into Sportly. Tune in next week and every week after for a new episode. And if you have thoughts or suggestions for a topic you'd like me to cover, I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to email me at kavitha@immigrantlypod.com. And if typing a long email isn't your thing, record and attach a voice memo to your message. Sportly is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Paroma Chakravarti. Executive producer is Sadia Khan. Written by Nicholas Black and me, Kavitha Davidson. Fact-checking by Joseph Ruelas. Our sound designer and editor is Paroma Chakravarti. Our theme music was created by Simon Hutchinson. Other music by Epidemic Sound. Tune back in next week for more Sportly.